Hello everyone, and welcome to the Ben 10 What Ifs. So we are back with an interesting movie on what if Ben 10 awakened the dragon Omnitrix, the key to Primordial Beast's Dragon Ball Super. But before we start, I just want to remind you to please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button if you enjoy my content. Let's start the story. Chapter 1. Convergence Point. The midnight sky above Bellwood rippled with emerald tendrils of light, atmospheric disturbances that no meteorological model could explain. Ben Tennyson tracked the phenomenon from the rooftop of an abandoned observatory, his jade eyes reflecting the undulating glow. 5 years had transformed him from the lanky teenager who had saved the universe countless times into something else. Entirely. A man whose shoulders carried the weight of galaxies with practiced ease. Temporal displacement reading at 67% above baseline, Ben murmured, adjusting the modified plumber scanner in his hand. Third anomaly this week. The wind tousled his chestnut hair as he lowered the device, his expression contemplative rather than alarmed. At 21, Benjamin Tennyson had outgrown impulsive reactions. Experience had sculpted his features into sharper angles, cheekbones more pronounced, jawline firmer, while years of combat had honed his physique into lean, functional muscle. Beneath the simple black t-shirt and dark green jacket he favored. The Omnitrix on his wrist pulsed with an irregular rhythm, its familiar green glow occasionally flickering with amber undertones. That had begun appearing 3 months ago. Ben absently rubbed his thumb across its surface, feeling the imperceptible vibration that hummed against his skin. "Whatever you're trying to tell me," he addressed the device quietly. "Your timing could be better," his communicator chirped, a specialized plumber frequency, interrupting his contemplation. "Tennyson," he answered, eyes still tracking the atmospheric disturbance. "Ben, we've got a problem." Rook Blanco's voice carried the formal efficiency that had initially irritated Ben years ago but had since become a comforting constant. "Demency. Onal readings are spiking across 6 sectors. Magistrate Tennyson requests your presence at headquarters immediately." "Already monitoring an anomaly over downtown Bellwood," Ben replied, mentally calculating the quickest route. "Any correlation with the Omnitrix fluctuations I reported last week?" A pause. "Unconfirmed, but the energy signatures share certain, unusual characteristics." Ben's attention caught on a subtle shift in Rook's typically straightforward delivery. "What aren't you telling me, partner? The energies contain temporal markers similar to those we encountered during the Chronosapian incident. But there's something else, an energy pattern Magister Tennyson says he hasn't seen since." The Omnitrix suddenly flared with intense light, cutting off Rook's words as pain lanced up Ben's arm. The device emitted a high-pitched whine that crescendoed into an electromagnetic pulse, disrupting the communication and sending the scanner clattering across the rooftop. "Perfect timing," Ben hissed through clenched teeth, dropping to one knee as the Omnitrix's surface temperature climbed rapidly. Years of experience had taught him to recognize the device's reactions. It wasn't the familiar warmth of an alien transformation, but something more fundamental, as though the Omnitrix itself was fighting against an outside force. Green light fractured with veins of gold, an energy that hadn't appeared in any previous manifestation. Ben pressed his fingers against the Omnitrix's dial, attempting a manual override sequence that Azimuth had taught him for emergencies. The device responded with cascading symbols in Galvan script that scrolled too rapidly to decipher, punctuated by warning glyphs he'd never encountered. "Not helping," he muttered, sweat beading on his forehead as he tried another sequence. Above him, the atmospheric disturbance intensified, coalescing into a swirling vortex that cast prismatic reflections across the rooftop. The air crackled with ozone and something else, a heavy, ancient presence that seemed to press against reality itself. Ben's years of handling cosmic threats had honed instincts that transcended conscious thought. He rolled sideways just as a beam of concentrated energy struck where he'd been kneeling, leaving a perfectly circular hole melted through the concrete. Attacking without introduction, Ben called out, "Posey," Cheoning himself behind a ventilation unit. Bad form for a first date. The humorous deflection was automatic, a habit developed to mask strategic thinking. His mind raced through transformation optio. NS even as he assessed the attack pattern. The beam hadn't been random, it had targeted the Omnitrix specifically, suggesting an intelligence behind the anomaly. The vortex pulsed, and a second energy. Y-beam sliced through the ventilation unit, missing Ben by centimeters as he dove toward the stairwell entrance. The Omnitrix's erratic behavior eliminated his usual advantage, uncertain transformation. Were too risky with an unknown assailant. "All right," Ben muttered, his voice steady despite the escalating situation. Plan B. From his jacket pocket, he withdrew a compact device no larger than a poker chip, one of Blukik and Dryba's more practical inventions. He thumbed the activation switch and hurled it toward the center of the vortex. The miniaturized null-void projector would temporarily stabilize the dimensional rift, buying precious minutes too. The device never reached its target. Midway through its arc, it encountered an invisible barrier and disintegrated into microscopic particles that glittered briefly before vanishing. "That's new," Ben acknowledged, reassessing his options as the rooftop illuminated with intensifying light. The vortex contracted suddenly, energy condensing into a humanoid silhouette suspended within the swirling anomaly. Details were obscured by blinding radiance, but Ben discerned a slender figure with outstretched arms, palms directed toward the Omnitrix. "Benjamin Tennyson." The voice resonated not through air but directly within his mind, layered with harmonics that suggested multiple speakers perfectly synchronized. "The convergence point manifests through you." Ben straightened, keeping his stance balanced for rapid movement if necessary. "You have me at a disadvantage. Care to introduce yourself before continuing whatever this is?" Names are irrelevant at the threshold of universal reconfiguration. The figure's outline fluctuated, energy cascading around it like liquid light. "The dragon essence responds to your chronological signature. You have been chosen, though not by our design." The Omnitrix pulsed violently in response to the entity's words, its surface now emanating golden light that seemed to reach toward figure-like tendrils seeking connection. "Dragon essence," Ben repeated, mind racing through his encyclopedic knowledge of aliens and cosmic entities. Nothing matched this phenomenon. "Look, I'm you ally open to cryptic conversations with interdimensional visitors, but my schedule's pretty full with the whole universe saving business. Maybe we could reschedule." The figure inclined its head, a gesture almost resembling amusement. "The humor defense mechanism. Fascinating how it persists across your developmental stages." Its attention shifted to the Omnitrix. "The Matrix has already begun integration. The process cannot be reversed." As if triggered by these words, the Omnitrix emitted a piercing tone that forced Ben to his knees. The pain was extraordinary, not localized to his wrist radiating throughout his nervous system, as though every cell was being individually assessed and recalibrated. "What?" Ben gasped, fighting to maintain consciousness as golden energy enveloped his arm. "Are you doing?" "We are observers, not initiators." The figure's voice remained unnervingly calm. "The Omnitrix has absorbed trace energies from your dimensional transversals. Our presence merely catalyzes what was inevitable." Through wavering vision, Ben watched in astonishment as the Omnitrix's familiar form began to change. The circular dial elongated, its edges reshaping into an angular design reminiscent of ancient glyphs. The green illumination deepened to emerald before fracturing with veins of gold that coalesced into intricate patterns across its surface. "Stop," Ben commanded, summoning decades of experience with the device to impose his will upon it. The transformation paused momentarily, the Omnitrix stabilizing just enough for Ben to catch his breath. The figure drifted closer, its featureless face now level with Ben's. Remarkable control. Perhaps the convergence is not misplaced after all. Before Ben could respond, reality fractured around them. A second. Vortex tore through the air, this one a controlled, precise opening that contrasted with the chaotic energy of the first anomaly. Through this new portal stepped a woman whose appearance immediately registered as both human and distinctly not. Her movements conveyed lethal efficiency as she assessed the rooftop in a single sweep, eyes narrowing at the suspended figure before settling on Ben with cold intensity. She wore what appeared to be a form-fitting tactical uniform in muted blue and black, emblazoned with an unfamiliar insignia across her chest, a stylized hourglass surrounded by 7 stars. "Temporal incursion detected and confirmed," she announced, her voice carrying the precision of a military officer. "Subject identified. Benjamin Kirby Tennyson, Universal Designation XJ7, Divergence Point Alpha." She raised her arm, revealing a device around her wrist that resembled a sophisticated chronometer rather than a weapon. "By authority of the Time Patrol, This unauthorized convergence is terminated. The suspended figure turned toward the newcomer, energy patterns shifting to something that radiated hostility. Chronos agent, your jurisdiction does not extend to convergence events. Jurisdiction expands where timeline contamination occurs, the woman replied without emotion. Her gaze shifted to Ben, or more specifically, to the transforming Omnitrix. The dragon essence cannot pass to an unregulated vessel. Quote, Ben struggled to his feet, fighting through waves of pain as the Omnitrix continued its metamorphosis. Would someone mind explaining what's happening to my watch before you two continue your bureaucratic dispute? The woman's expression hardened. That watch is absorbing primordial dragon energy, power restricted to authorized guardians across designated timelines. You've triggered a convergence cascade that threatens universal boundary integrity. She stepped closer, and Ben noticed details previously obscured. Her eyes contained vertical pupils had caught the light with amber reflection, and beneath her skin, barely perceptible patterns moved like scales beneath water. I am Kata Shenron, Temporal Enforcement Division, she continued, her attention divided between Ben and the luminous entity. That device must be contained before full integration occurs. The Omnitrix flared again, sending Ben staggering backward as golden energy formed a protective barrier around him. The pain receded momentarily, replaced by an odd sensation of ancient awareness filtering through his consciousness, fragmentary impressions of vast wings-spanning galaxies. Of time perceived as a physical dimension that could be traversed at will. The integration accelerates, the luminous figure observed, its form beginning to destabilize. Our observation window closes. Remember, Tennyson, 7 aspects, 7 trials. The balance must be maintained. With those cryptic words, the figure collapsed inward, energy dispersing in a silent implosion that never. The less sent a shockwave across the rooftop. Ben braced himself against the concrete barrier as debris swirled around him, the golden energy shield from the Omnitrix flickering but holding. When the dust settled, only Ben and the Time Patrol agent remained, regarding each other across the damaged rooftop. That was uncharacteristically dramatic, Ben commented, carefully testing his weight as he straightened. The Omnitrix had stabilized into its new form, sleeker, with intricate golden patterns inlaid across its emerald surface. 7 unfamiliar icons now encircled the central dial, each Res. MBLING stylized dragon silhouettes in different poses. Kata raised her chronometer, scanning the device from a distance. Her expression shifted from clinical assessment to barely contained alarm. Impossible, she murmured, checking the readings twice before returning her attention to Ben. The energy patterns indicate Class 7 integration, primordial level access. Which means, Ben prompted, examining the transformed Omnitrix with cautious curiosity. It means you've accidentally acquired power restricted to Hakkaitan tier entities, she replied, her professional detachment slipping to reveal genuine concern. That device now contains genetic markers and energy signatures from the 7 primordial dragons, beings that existed before universal differentiation. Ben absorbed T's information with the practiced calm of someone who routinely dealt with cosmic revelations. Not the first time the Omnitrix has upgraded itself. Though the light show was new. This isn't an upgrade, Kata insisted. Frustration edging into her voice. This is multiversal theft. Those energies maintain balance across timeline clusters designated under Supreme Kai protection. Their extraction creates instabilities that could collapse entire universal branches. The Omnitrix pulsed gently against Ben's wrist, warmth spreading up his arm. Not painful now, but comforting, almost familiar despite its newness. It doesn't feel extracted, Ben observed, trusting the instincts developed through years of symbiosis with the device. More like connected. As if it's tapping into something rather than containing it. Kata's expression darkened. Semantic distinctions won't matter when reality fractures around us. She adjusted something on her chronometer. The dragon essence must be earned to stabilize the affected timelines. I'm authorized to use necessary force. Ben's posture shifted subtly. Weight balanced, center of gravity lowered, hands relaxed but ready. The transformation. From casual conversation to combat readiness occurred without conscious thought, a transition honed through countless battles. I understand your concern, he said, voice level despite the implied threat. But removing the Omnitrix has implications you may not fully appreciate. Let's discuss alternatives before jumping to necessary force. Something flickered across Kata's features, recognition, perhaps. That she faced not the impulsive teenager documented in Time Patrol records, but a seasoned defender whose experience matched her own. Protocol mandates immediate containment, she stated, though her stance remained neutral. But circumstances are unprecedented. Explain your perspective. Ben gestured to the Omnitrix. This device contains DNA samples from nearly every sentient species in my universe. It's designed to adapt and integrate new genetic material safely. If it's connected to these dragons, removing it could cause exactly the instability you're trying to prevent. Kata considered this, her tactical assessment visible in calculating eyes. A reasonable hypothesis. However, her response was interrupted as the Omnitrix suddenly activated without Ben's input. Go. Elden light enveloped his form as the transformation sequence initiated, familiar yet fundamentally altered. Instead of the typical green energy reconfiguring his molecular structure, scales of luminesce. Emerald and gold materialized across his skin, spreading outward in fractal patterns. This isn't me, Ben managed before his voice transformed into something deeper, resonant with harmonics that vibrated the air around them. The transformation completed in seconds, leaving Ben staring at arms covered in iridescent scales that shifted between emerald and gold depending on how light struck them. His perceptions had altered dramatically, vision sharpened to microscopic detail, hearing expanded to detect atmospheric pressure variations, and most disorienting, a sensory awareness of gravitati. Onal fields that rendered the concept of down suddenly arbitrary. Kata retreated several steps, her chronometer raised defensively as she barked commands into it. Emergency Protocol 937. Unauthorized Dragon Manifestation. Earth Designation XJ7. Requesting immediate containment team. Ben raised his transformed hands in a placating gesture, only to watch in fascination as golden energy arced between his fingertips. Responding to thoughts he hadn't consciously formed. I'm still in control, he asserted, though the resonant quality of his voice undermined the intended reassurance. Just adjusting to new parameters. He caught his reflection in a shattered window, his face elongated slightly, features sharpened with reptilian influence while maintaining recognizable humanity. His eyes had transformed entirely, golden irises with vertical pupils that glowed with internal light. Most striking were the scaled ridges that extended from his temples, suggesting the beginning of horns or crests. Earth Dragon Manifestation, Kata identified, maintaining her distance while scanning continuously. Foundation Aspect, the least volatile, thankfully. But containment is saint, critical before further transformations occur. Ben focused inward, seeking the familiar connection with the Omnitrix that had guided transformations for over a decade. The interface had changed. Instead of discrete alien consciousnesses, he encountered something vastly older, a presence that didn't regard itself as separate from universal fabric. I can control this, Ben insisted, concentra. Ting on maintaining his current form rather than reverting. Something instinctive warned that attempting transformation now could trigger unpredictable results. The rooftop beneath his feet trembled. Concrete cracking in patterns that spread outward from where he stood. Dust and small debris began rising against gravity, orbiting him in lazy spirals as ambient energy responded to his presence. Quote, "Your gravitational field is destabilizing," Kata warned, backing toward her portal. Full dragon emergence will cause catastrophic geological effects. Ben focused on regulation, drawing on Experian. CE with gravity manipulating aliens like Gravitac. The debris slowed its orbit but continued hovering. Working on it. This form operates on different principles than standard transformations. The night sky above them rippled again. Aurora-like patterns spreading across Bellwood as the dimensional boundaries thinned in response to Ben's transformation. In the distance, car alarms activated as their electronic systems responded to electromagnetic fluctuations. Time Patrol, report status. A voice emerged from Kata's chronometer, crisp with authority. Dragon essence integration progressing rapidly, she responded. Eyes never leaving Ben. Subject maintains partial consciousness control but environmental effects accelerating. Containment Team ETA. Portal sequencing initiated. Maintain distance from subject. Temporal isolation field deploying in 3 minutes. Ben caught the implication immediately. Temporal isolation means freezing this entire area outside normal time flow, doesn't it? There are thousands of people in downtown Bellwood. Kata's expression revealed nothing. Standard procedure for multiversal contamination events. There's nothing standard about this, Ben countered, forcing his transformed body to remain still despite the energy coursing through it. You're treating this like an invasion when it's clearly an evolution of the Omnitrix's function. The dragon consciousness within the transformation stirred at his words, not opposing his assessment but offering deeper perspective. Images flashed through Ben's mind, convergence points across multiple universes. Timeline branches weaving through dimensional barriers, energy patterns forming natural connections where realities intersected. The dragon essence responds to dimensional fracture points, Ben articulated, translating the conceptual understanding into words. It's not random. The Omnitrix has been encountering these points during my missions. It's been preparing. Kata's skepticism was evident. Preparing for what? Before Ben could answer, multiple portals materialized around the rooftop, precise circular openings that hummed with regulated energy. Through each stepped uniformed figures wearing variations of Kata's attire, their movements synchronized with military precision. Time Patrol Containment Unit, announced the lead officer, a tall figure whose uniform bore additional insignia. Target secured. Deploying chronometric suppression field. Ben assessed the tactical situation with practiced efficiency. 6 agents including Kata, positioned to surround him, each carrying specialized equipment designed for temporal manipulation. The portals remained open behind them, emergency extraction routes. Listen carefully, Ben addressed them collectively, raw, icing his voice over the intensifying energy field around him. I understand your protocols, but this situation requires adaptation, not containment. The Omnitrix isn't stealing dragon essence, it's establishing a new connection that might benefit both our universes. The lead officer regarded him impassively. Subject demonstrates cognizance but dragon integration continues. Proceed with suppression measures. Wait, Kata interjected, surprising both Ben and her colleagues. His control is unprecedented for initial manifestation. Standard suppression could trigger catastrophic energy discharge. The officer hesitated, attention shifting between Kata and Ben. Recommend alternative. Controlled environment assessment, she suggested, maintaining professional detachment despite the unorthodox recommendation. Supreme Kai Division should evaluate this convergence before suppression attempts. Ben remained perfectly still, recognizing the delicate negotiation occurring. The dragon consciousness supplied additional awareness. These agents operated under strict hierarchical protocols where deviation carried significant consequences. Kata was risking her position by suggesting alternative measures. Request denied. The officer decided after brief consideration. Timeline integrity supersedes assessment protocols. Deploy suppression field on my mark. The agents moved with practiced coordination, activating devices that projected interconnected energy barriers around Ben. The field hummed with temporal manipulation frequencies designed to isolate him from normal space-time. Ben felt the dragon consciousness respond instinctively, power surging through transformed muscles as preservation instincts activated. The ground beneath him fractured completely as gravitation. Al forces intensified hundredfold in microseconds. Stop, he commanded, fighting for control as buildings throughout downtown Bellwood began trembling in response to the localized gravitational distortion. You're forcing a defensive reaction. The suppression field contracted, energy barriers solidifying as they closed around him. Ben's transformed senses detected the complex temporal ICS underlying their construction, equations designed to freeze objects outside normal time flow, effectively removing them from reality without destruction. The dragon consciousness rejected this absolutely, recognizing existential threat. Power erupted from Ben in concentric waves, golden energy shattering the suppression field before it could fully manifest. The backlash sent Time Patrol agents sprawling across the rooftop as their equipment overloaded. Only Kata remained standing, braced against the energy wave with one arm raised protectively. Her eyes widened as she witnessed the transformation accelerating, scales spreading further across Ben's form, facial features elongating toward draconic appearance, golden energy condensing around his silhouette. Tennyson, she called out, Vo, ice cutting through the cacophony of energies. Focus on your human consciousness. The dragon aspect responds to perceived threats. Ben fought for mental equilibrium as two consciousnesses struggled. For dominance, his human identity with its memories and values against the primordial awareness of an entity that perceived reality through fundamentally different frameworks. The conflict manifested physically as his transformation fluctuated, features shifting between human and draconic with increasing rapidity. "I can't," he struggled, golden energy pulsing outward in uncontrolled bursts that cracked concrete and warped metal. "The energies are too." His words dissolved into a roar that shattered remaining windows across the rooftop. Ben dropped to his knees, transformed hands clutching his head as competing awareness threatened to tear his consciousness apart. The Omnitrix at his wrist pulsed rapidly, its systems attempting to stabilize the transformation while integrating the new genetic material. Kata approached cautiously, ignoring warnings from recovering colleagues. "Listen to me, Tennyson. The Earth Dragon aspect responds to stability. Ground yourself in unchanging elements of your identity." Through fragmented perception, Ben recognized the tactical wisdom in her advice. The dragon consciousness wasn't hostile, it was defensive, responding to external threats with escalating force. Stability would calm its protective instincts. Ben focused on core memories that defined his identity, receiving the original Omnitrix at age 10, his grandfather's unwavering guidance. Battles won through ingenuity rather than power, relationships that anchored him across years of cosmic threats. With each memory, the chaotic energy fluctuations diminished slightly, his appearance stabilizing into a balanced hybridization of human and dragon features. "That's it," Kata encouraged, close enough now to observe the transformation stabilizing. "The Earth Dragon values protection and foundation. Your experiences as a defender align with its fundamental nature." The remaining Time Patrol agents regrouped, equipment recalibrated for the evolved situation. Ader approached Kata with barely contained frustration. "Agent Shenron, you've exceeded authority parameters," he stated flatly. "Engagement with dragon manifestations requires Supreme Kai clearance." "With respect, Commander," she responded without taking her eyes from Ben. "Conventional protocols would have triggered catastrophic manifestation. The subject demonstrates unprecedented integration control." Ben managed to stand. Draconic features settled into a stable configuration that allowed articulate speech despite altered vocal structures. "Your agent made the correct assessment. Ed suppression would have triggered defensive measures beyond my control." The commander regarded Ben with clinical detachment. "The subject's perspective is irrelevant to containment procedures." "Maybe it shouldn't be," Kata countered with surprising boldness. "Our records confirm this individual has contained and controlled power equivalent to Celestial Sapien-class entities. Standard classifications may not apply." The unexpected advocacy from his supposed adversary caught Ben's attention. Despite her initial hostility, Kata demonstrated analytical flexibility that contradicted the rigid protocol-driven approach of her colleagues. The dragon consciousness supplied additional insight. Her scent carried genetic markers similar to the dragon essence itself, suggesting heritage beyond typical human parameters. Before the commander could respond, multiple alerts activated simultaneously across all Time Patrol devices. Emergency signals pulsed with increasing urgency as agents checked readings with growing concern. "Dimensional fracture expanding exponentially," reported one agent, voice tight with professional anxiety. "Integrity collapse imminent across neighboring sectors." The commander turned accusatory eyes toward Ben. "Dragon manifestation is destabilizing local reality. Suppression is non-negotiable." Ben felt the fluctuations before their instruments detected them. Reality thinning around them as dimensional barriers weakened. The transformation had triggered cascading effects beyond the immediate vicinity, threatening far more than downtown Bellwood. "This isn't my transformation," Ben realized. Draconic senses detecting subtle distinctions in energy patterns. Something else is using the manifestation as a beacon. The sky above them tore open, not the sea. Untrolled portals of Time Patrol technology but a jagged rift that leaked darkness rather than light. Through this aberrant opening poured creatures that defied conventional taxonomy, serpentine forms composed of negative space. Their movements leaving temporal distortions in their wake. Chronivores, Kata identified, horror breaking through her professional demeanor. They shouldn't be able to manifest in physical dimensions. The serpentine entities circled the rooftop, their non-material forms passing through solid matter while leaving degradation in their wake. Wherever they touched, objects aged rapidly, concrete crumbling to dust, metal oxidizing instantly, electronic equipment shorting out as component materials degraded across centuries in seconds. Ben assessed the new threat with strategic clarity. The dragon consciousness supplying crucial context. They're drawn to temporal disruption. Your containment attempt created the very vulnerability they're exploiting. The Time Patrol commander barked orders. Agents repositioning to combat the chronivores with specialized weapons that fired concentrated temporal energy. The attacks passed harmlessly through the entities. CH showed no acknowledgement of the assault as they continued circling. Conventional temporal weapons are ineffective, Kata reported, backing toward Ben as the perimeter contracted. They exist partially outside our timeline. The dragon consciousness stirred with recognition, supplying knowledge that flowed naturally into Ben's tactical assessment. They're entropy manifestations, conceptual predators that consume ordered time. They can only be countered with stabilizing energy. Ben raised his transformed hands, golden energy coalescing as he channeled power through the Earth Dragon's fundamental nature, stability, foundation, preservation. The chronivores reacted immediately, serpentine forms writhing as they sensed oppositional force to their entropic nature. "Cover me," Ben instructed Kata, who nodded with immediate understanding, positioning herself to intercept any chronivores that approached too closely. Drawing on years of experience modulating alien powers, Ben shaped He dragon energy into stabilizing waves that radiated outward, reinforcing local space-time against degradation. The chronivores recoiled from these emissions, their formless bodies contorting as they encountered force antithetical to their nature. The dimensional rift is their entry point, Ben observed, golden eyes tracking energy patterns invisible to conventional perception. It needs to be sealed before more manifest. Kata glanced upward at the widening tier. Time Patrol sealing protocols require minutes we don't have. Then we improvise, Ben replied, a familiar confidence underlying his transformed voice. Can your team create a temporal containment field around the rift itself rather than trying to contain me? The commander overheard this exchange, skepticism evident but tactical necessity overriding protocol concerns. Theoretically possible, containment fields can be reconfigured for dimensional boundaries. Do it, Ben directed, continuing to emit stabilizing energy that kept the chronivores at bay. I'll provide cover while you work. Something shifted in the commander's assessment, professional recognition of tactical validity overcoming institutional distrust. He signaled his team, who immediately began recalibrating equipment for the modified approach. Ben stepped forward, placing himself between the Time Patrol agents and the circling chronivores. He dragon consciousness approved of this protective positioning, power flowing more readily as action aligned with its fundamental nature. They're accelerating degradation, Kata warned, watching chronivores dive toward the rooftop, leaving decay patterns that spread outward like ripples. Ben responded by intensifying the stabilizing field, golden energy now visible as geometric patterns that reinforced reality against entropic erosion. The effort required tremendous concentration, not simply emitting power but shaping it with mathematical precision to counter specific degradation frequencies. Almost there, called one agent, making final adjustments to the containment apparatus now oriented toward the dimensional rift. The chronivores sensed the impending threat, their random movements suddenly coordinating as they abandoned individual attacks to form a collective entity, a massive serpentine shape composed of dozens of smaller forms intertwined into unified purpose. They're adapting, Ben realized, shifting his stance to brace against the imminent assault. The collective chronivore struck with devastating force, its composite body slamming against Ben's energy field. The impact sent him sliding backward, transformed feet leaving furrows in the concrete as he maintained the protective barrier. Field activation in 10 seconds, announced the commander, monitoring final calibrations. Ben gritted sharpened teeth, draconic musculature straining as he pushed back against the chronivore collective. The dragon consciousness supplied combat instincts evolved across eons. Not just defensive positioning but counterattack methodology that targeted the entity's structural vulnerabilities. Following these instincts, Ben shaped his energy into concentrated lances that RCED the chronivore collective at junction points where individual entities merged. The precision strikes disrupted their unified structure, forcing component entities to separate and retreat momentarily. Now, Ben shouted, sensing the collective reforming for another assault. The Time Patrol agents activated their reconfigured equipment simultaneously, projecting interconnected energy beams that converged on the dimensional rift. Temporal mathematics manifested as glowing equations that surrounded the tear, calculating closure parameters in real time as the containment field established boundary conditions. The chronivores abandoned their attack on Ben, serpentine forms streaking toward the closing rift in desperate attempt to maintain their access point. The collective reformed with greater mass, striking the containment field with enough force to stagger the agents maintaining it. The field's destabilizing, Kata reported, monitoring fluctuations through her chronometer. RGY requirements exceed available output. Ben assessed the situation in microseconds, the dragon consciousness supplying critical insight. Your containment field needs foundational anchoring. I can provide it through the Earth Dragon aspect. Without waiting for approval, Ben placed his transformed hands against the rooftop, channeling dragon energy directly into the building's structural foundation. Golden light spread through the concrete, tracing architectural support patterns before rising to connect with the Time Patrol's containment field. The chronivores struck again, but this time the containment field held firm. Anchored to physical reality through Ben's power, the dimensional rift began contracting, its edges knitting together as temporal mathematics enforced normal space-time parameters. It's working, the commander acknowledged, genuine surprise evident in his voice. Dimensional integrity restoring to baseline. With unified effort, Time Patrol technology and dragon energy completed the sealing process. The rift collapsing with a thunderclap that momentarily silenced all other sounds. The chronivores caught outside their dimension writhed in apparent distress E4 dissolving into temporal particles that dispersed harmlessly. Ben straightened, transformed body radiating residual energy as the immediate threat subsided. The dragon consciousness settled into balanced co-awareness. No longer fighting for dominance but maintaining partnership as danger receded. Not exactly how I planned to spend Tuesday evening, Ben commented, examining his transformed appearance with scientific curiosity rather than alarm. His voice maintained resonant qualities but had stabilized into consistent tonality. The Time Patrol agents regarded him with expressions ranging from cautious reassessment to lingering suspicion. Their commander approached, professional composure restored despite equipment damage and personnel injuries. This incident requires comprehensive evaluation, he stated, avoiding direct acknowledgement of Ben's crucial role in resolving the crisis. Agent Shenron will escort you to temporal headquarters for debriefing and containment assessment. Ben met his gaze steadily, golden eyes unblinking. I understand your protocols, Commander, but this transformation isn't a threat requiring containment. It's an evolution of existing technology. That just helped prevent dimensional collapse. That remains to be determined by appropriate authorities, the commander responded, though his tone lacked previous certainty. The Time Patrol docent, she recognized unilateral acquisition of dragon essence, regardless of application. Before Ben could respond, a familiar green portal opened across the rooftop, the distinctive energy signature of Plumber Headquarters Transportation System. Through this portal stepped Magister Rook Blanco, accompanied by a contingent of Plumber agents equipped with advanced xenotechnology. Rook assessed the situation with characteristic efficiency, taking in Ben's transformed appearance, the Time Patrol agents, and the residual energy patterns across the rooftop. His expression revealed momentary surprise before professional composure reasserted itself. Magister Tennyson, Rook addressed Ben, using his official title rather than familiar name, a deliberate choice that established jurisdictional context. Quote, we detected critical dimensional anomalies centered on your location. I see the situation has evolved. That's one way of putting it, Ben agreed, gesturing to his transformed state. The Omnitrix has integrated something called Dragon Essence. These Time Patrol agents believe it requires containment. Rook turned his attention to the Time Patrol commander, his stance subtly shifting to Indy. Cape diplomatic rather than tactical engagement. I am Magister Rook Blanco, Plumber Special Operations Division. This incident occurs within Earth-protected space under Plumber jurisdiction. The commander matched Rook's formal approach. Commander Kronos, Time Patrol Enforcement Division. We operate under Supreme Kai authority concerning Dragon Essence manifestations across all dimensional designations. The jurisdictional standoff crystallized with perfect clarity, two cosmic enforcement agencies with overlapping authority claims but fundamentally different operational parameters. The draw, gone consciousness supplied additional context, highlighting the political complexities of multiversal governance structures that rarely interacted directly. Kata stepped forward, positioning herself between the two groups. With respect, Commander, Magister, the immediate situation requires scientific assessment before jurisdictional disputes can be properly addressed. The subject demonstrates unprecedented integration stability that contradicts standard manifestation protocols. Rook considered this intervention carefully before nodding. Agent Shenron raises a valid point. Our primary concern should be dimensional stability rather than enforcement hierarchies. Agreed, Ben interjected, consciously moderating his transformed voice to maintain diplomatic tone. I suggest joint ASA's SM. And at Plummer headquarters where we have specialized containment facilities if necessary, while respecting time patrol observational protocols. The commander's expression suggested this compromise contradicted standard procedure. But tactical reality had already demonstrated the inadequacy of conventional approaches. After brief internal calculation, he nodded curtly. Conditional agreement, P. Ending Supreme Kai Division consultation. Agent Shenron will represent Time Patrol interests during preliminary assessment. With provisional agreement established, tension across the rooftop diminished measurably. The remaining Time Patrol agents began securing their equipment while Plummer personnel established perimeter monitoring for lingering dimensional anomalies. Ben concentrated on his transformed state, seeking the familiar mental interface that would allow reversion to human form. The process felt fundamentally different, not simply deactivating alien DNA but negotiating with an IND. A pendant consciousness that considered transformation a collaboration rather than temporary manifestation. After several attempts, Ben achieved partial success, his features becoming predominantly hum. And while retaining subtle draconic elements, golden eyes with vertical pupils, faint scale patterns visible beneath skin, enhanced musculature with slightly altered proportions. Interesting, he murmured, examining residual changes. The transformation doesn't fully revert. It's more like a dormant state. Kata observed this process with scientific interest, scanning continuously with her chronometer. Dragon essence integration typically requires lifelong adaptation. Partial manifestation suggests the Omnitrix is buffering full genetic expression. Rook approached cautiously, Professor. Onal assessment briefly giving way to personal concern. Are you experiencing adverse effects, Ben? Nothing painful, Ben assured him, flexing transformed fingers that moved with enhanced precision. More like sensory expansion. I'm perceiving energy patterns and dimensional layers that were always present but previously invisible. The Omnitrix itself had settled into its new configuration, emerald surface interlaced with golden circuitry that occasionally pulsed with internal light. The 7 dragon icons remained prominently displayed around the central dial, one illuminated while 6 remained dormant. Earth Dragon Aspect, Kata identified, indicating the active icon. Foundation Aspect governing stability, protection, and material reinforcement. The least volatile but most foundational of the 7. Ben nodded, internal awareness confirming her assessment. I can sense the others, waiting. Each connected to different fundamental forces. The commander approached, having completed arrangements with his team. Assessment proceeds under joint protocol, but containment remains our recommendation. Dragon essence manifestation has historically proven uncontrollable beyond initial stages. With respect, Commander, Ben responded, diplomatic experience evident despite his altered appearance, historical precedent may not apply to Omnitrix integration. This device has untamed and regulated powers equivalent to universal creation and destruction. The commander's expression remained skeptical, but he offered no further argument as Plummer agents finalized transportation arrangements. Within minutes, multiple portals opened, Plummer technology establishing secure passage to headquarters while Time Patrol operators maintained separate dimensional monitoring. As preparations completed, Ben felt a sudden shift in perception, a warning from the dragon consciousness that manifested as heightened awareness of dimensional frequencies. Something approached. Not through conventional space but through conceptual boundaries that separated reality frameworks. We need to move quickly, Ben warned, golden eyes tracking invisible disturbances. Something else is coming. Something attracted to the dragon energy signature. Kata's chronometer activated without prompting, emergency alerts pulsing across its display. Dimensional incursion imminent, classification unknown. Evacuation priority Alpha, Rook ordered immediately, plumber agents responding with practiced efficiency. Before anyone could reach the transportation portals, reality fractured once more, the entropic tear of chronivores, but a precisely calculated incision that separated dimensional layers with surgical precision. Through this methodical opening emerged a figure that defied conventional description. Humanoid in basic structure but composed of shifting geometric patterns that rearranged continuously, suggesting existence across multiple states simultaneously. Convergence point located, the entity announced, its voice modulating across frequencies that caused physical discomfort in all present. Dragon vessel identified. Ben stepped forward automatically, positioning himself between the entity and others present, a protective instinct amplified by the Earth Dragon aspect. Identify yourself and your purpose. The entity's geometric patterns reconfigured, approximating focused attention. This unit serves Lord Kronos, master of primordial time. The dragon essence has been misallocated. Reclamation is required. Kata moved alongside Ben, chronometer raised defensively. Kronos proxy detected. Time Patrol Authority supersedes reclamation directives without Supreme Kai authorization. The proxy's patterns shifted again, angles becoming sharper as its attention divided between Ben and Kata. Authorization irrelevant. Convergence patterns indicate critical instability. The vessel is incompatible with sustained integration. Ben felt the dragon consciousness respond to this assessment with fundamental disagreement, not emotional rejection but absolute certainty based on completed compatibility calculations. The transformation stabilized further, golden energy forming protective patterns around both Ben and nearby personnel. Your information is incorrect, Ben stated with calm authority that resonated with draconic undertones. The Omnitrix was DAISY, GNED for cross-species genetic integration. Dragon essence compatibility has been confirmed through successful Earth aspect manifestation. The proxy analyzed this response, geometric pattern cycling through complex equations visible within its translucent form. Analysis contradicts historical precedent. No biological vessel has sustained dragon integration beyond tertiary manifestation. Perhaps it's time to update your historical records, Ben suggested, the diplomatic experience of years moderating the dragon aspect's more territorial instincts. The Omnitrix regularly achieves at historical precedent considered impossible. The proxy's consideration lasted precisely 5 seconds before its decision crystallized in altered geometric patterns. Updated analysis inconclusive. Physical verification required. Without further warning, the entity attacked, not with conventional energy but with mathematical equations that manifested as reality-altering formulae. Space itself warped around Ben as fundamental constants shifted locally, gravity increasing exponentially while temporal progression accelerated within a precisely defined sphere. The dragon consciousness recognized the attack methodology immediately, countering with instinctive defense. Ben's transformed body emitted counter-mathematics, golden equations that stabilized local reality against the proxy's alterations. The clash of mathematical principles created visible distortions where opposing formulae intersected. Evacuate now, Ben commanded, maintaining defensive mathematics while positioning for counterattack. This entity manipulates fundamental constants. Conventional weapons will be ineffective. Rook coordinated immediate withdrawal, plumber agents escorting Time Patrol personnel toward Sport portals while establishing sensor perimeters around the engagement zone. Only Kata remained, her chronometer projecting temporal stabilization fields that reinforced Ben's counter-equations. Unexpected assistance from Time Patrol. Ben observed, golden eyes tracking the proxy's movements as it circled, testing defensive parameters. Professional assessment, Kata replied without taking her attention from the threat. Your elimination would trigger catastrophic dragon essence dispersal. Containment serves mutual interests. The proxy attacked again, this time altering quantum probab. ILITY states around Ben, fundamental particles shifting between potential positions at accelerated rates, threatening molecular cohesion. The dragon consciousness responded by anchoring reality through Earth aspect principles, establishing fixed reference points that maintain structural integrity. Vessel demonstrates advanced countermeasures, the proxy noted, its voice modulating with what might have been scientific curiosity. Integration exceeds projected parameters. Ben seized this momentary analysis to launch his own offensive, not through direct energy projection but by extending dragon stabilization principles into the proxy's own geometric structure. Golden mathematics infiltrated the entity's constantly shifting patterns, introducing fixed constants that contradicted its variable nature. The proxy's form distorted as conflicting mathematical principles fought for dominance, its geometric precision deteriorating into chaotic arrangements. Unauthorized stabilization detected. Conceptual integrity compromised. That's the point, Ben confirmed, pressing his advantage by intensifying stabilization mathematics. Your form requires continuous recalculation. I'm int. Reducing constants that prevent complete solution. The strategic application of dragon essence demonstrated Ben's fundamental approach to combat, not overwhelming force but precise application of countering principles. Identifying and exploiting specific vulnerabilities rather than engaging in power contests. The proxy's deterioration accelerated as stabilization mathematics prevented its continuous reconfiguration. Rather than risk complete dissolution, the entity initiated emergency protocols, its form contracting rapidly while dimensional equations generated retreat parameters. Vessel capability confirmed. The proxy announced, geometric patterns collapsing inward. Lord Kronos will adjust reclamation approach accordingly. With these ominous words, the entity vanished, not through conventional dimensional portal but through mathematical singularity that closed instantly behind it, leaving no trace of its presence beyond residual equation fragments that dissolved into background reality. Ben remained transformed, golden eyes scanning dimensional frequencies to confirm the threat's departure. The dragon consciousness supplied additional vigilance, monitoring subtle variations in spatial arrangement that might indicate lingering presence. Threat neutralized, he confirmed after thorough assessment. Though I suspect, Lord Kronos will send more sophisticated proxies once this one reports back. Kata lowered her chronometer, professional composure maintained despite the extraordinary confrontation. This encounter confirms Supreme Kai involvement is necessary. Lore. D. Kronos is a designation restricted to authorized time dragon aspects. His direct interest indicates multiversal complications beyond standard protocols. Ben considered this information, the dragon consciousness providing contextual understanding beyond Kata's explicit statement. Time dragon, one of the 7 aspects, I'm guessing, specifically connected to temporal mechanics. The most dangerous aspect, Kata confirmed. Genuine concern breaking through professional detachment. While all dragon aspects control fundamental forces, time dragon manipulation affects causality itself. If Lord Kronos seeks direct reclamation, multiple timeline clusters are at risk. The implications settled into Ben's strategic assessment with familiar weight, another cosmic threat requiring careful navigation of powers beyond conventional understanding. The novelty had worn off years ago, replaced by methodical evaluation of constraints, resources, and potential approaches. Then we'd better understand exactly what the dragon Omnitrix is capable of before he makes his next move, Ben concluded, examining the transformed device with renewed attention. Joint assessment at Plumber Headquarters seems increasingly necessary rather than jurisdictional. Kata nodded, practical considerations overriding protocol adherence. Agreed. Time Patrol analytical resources combined with your scientific IC division may provide insights neither would achieve independently. As the immediate crisis subsided, Ben became aware of the extensive damage across downtown Bellwood, buildings showing structural stress from gravitational fluctuations. Electrical systems compromised by electromagnetic pulses, civilians gathering at perimeter boundaries established by emergency services. The dragon consciousness stirred with protective instinct, concerned for disruption caused by its manifestation. Ben shared this sentiment, responsibility for collateral effects weighing heavily despite the unintentional nature of the transformation. Restoration priorities should be established, he noted, surveying the affected area. The Earth Dragon aspect should be able to repair structural damage once I better understand its capabilities. Rook approached cautiously, having overseen evacuation procedures. Plumber emergency teams are already implementing containment protocols. Your assistance would be W. Elcone once safety parameters are established. The careful phrasing acknowledged both Ben's capabilities and the uncertain nature of his transformed state, practical caution rather than personal distrust. Ben recognized this professional assessment without offense, appreciating Rook's balanced approach to unprecedented situations. Understood, Ben acknowledged, focusing inward to maintain transformation stability while reducing ambient energy emissions. The golden aura surrounding him contracted, energy drawing inward until only his transformed physical features remained visible evidence of the dragon aspect. Keita observed this control with clinical interest, scanning continuously. Remarkable energy regulation. Most initial manifestations require weeks to achieve basic containment. The Omnitrix provides interface structures, Ben explained, feeling the device mediating between his consciousness and the dragon aspect. It's translating my intentions into compatible parameters the dragon essence can interpret. As emergency procedures continued around them, Ben felt the first stirrings of fatigue, not physical exhaustion but mental strain from maintaining dual consciousness awareness. The dragon aspect recognized this limitation, its presence receding slightly to reduce cognitive burden while maintaining integrated connection. We should proceed to headquarters, Ben suggested, noting increasing difficulty maintaining precise transformation control. I need to properly understand these capabilities before attempting further manifestations. Rook nodded agreement, signaling for transport preparation while establishing secure communication channels with Plumber Command. Keita coordinated with remaining Time Patrol agents, arranging joint protocol implementation despite continued jurisdictional tension. As preparations completed, Ben gazed across the Bellwood skyline, the city he had protected since childhood, now affected by powers even he didn't fully comprehend. The dragon consciousness shared this contemplative moment, its ancient awareness providing perspective that spanned civilizations and dimensional epochs. This was merely the beginning, Ben realized. The Earth Dragon represented just one aspect of 7, each connected to fundamental forces that shaped reality across multiple universes. Whatever had triggered this convergence, whatever had NNECTED the Omnitrix to primordial dragon essence, represented purpose beyond coincidental energy absorption. As transport portals stabilized for departure, Ben caught Keita watching him with expressy. On beyond professional assessment, scientific curiosity mixed with something approaching reluctant admiration. She quickly resumed official demeanor when she noticed his attention, but the momentary imps suggested complexity beyond rigid Time Patrol protocols. Ready for transport, Rook announced, final security measures implemented as perimeter teams secured the affected zone. Ben stepped toward the portal, transformed form casting elongated shadow across the damaged rooftop. Whatever challenges awaited, whatever cosmic forces had set this convergence in motion, he would face them as he always had, one transformation at a time. Adapting to new parameters while maintaining the core principles that defined his approach since receiving the original Omnitrix. The dragon consciousness approved of this resolution, recognizing kindred protective spirit despite vastly different origins. As Ben passed through the transport portal, golden energy trailing behind him like ethereal wings, the consciousness settled into partnership rather than domination, the first step in what promised to be an extraordinary evolution of the hero known across galaxies as Ben 10. Chapter 1 End. Chapter 2. Scales of Understanding. Plumber headquarters hummed with the distinctive frequency of advanced alien technology, a subtle vibration that permeated the reinforced walls of the underground complex, more felt than heard by those who worked within its classified confines. In the primary research laboratory, that technological symphony reached crescendo levels as specialized equipment monitored, analyzed, and attempted to classify the unprecedented energy signatures emanating from Ben Tennyson's transformed Omnitrix. Ben sat perfectly still on an examination platform designed to accommodate beings of various physiologies. His posture relaxed despite being the center of intense scientific scrutiny. The partial draconic features he had maintained since the rooftop confrontation caught the sterile laboratory lighting in ways that emphasized their alien nature. Golden eyes with vertical pupils that tracked movement with preternatural awareness, faint scale patterns visible beneath skin that FTED between human and reptilian textures depending on ambient energy levels. Fascinating, murmured Drive, Lyra Nexus for perhaps the 12th time in as many minutes, her slender fingers manipulating holographic data displays with practiced precision. The quantum resonance patterns suggest multi-dimensional entanglement at the subatomic level, yet the coherence matrix maintains stability through what appears to be recursive mathematical anchoring. Her voice carried the distinctive cadence of a mind racing several steps ahead of verbal expression, each word carefully selected from a scientific vocabulary vast enough to describe phenomena most languages lacked terminology for entirely. At 26, Drive, Nexus had already revolutionized 3 distinct fields of xenobiology, her mixed human anodide heritage providing unique perspective on energy-matter interactions that purely physical beings often overlooked. Is that a question or an observation? Ben asked with a hint of amusement. Having grown accustomed to Lyra's tendency to phrase discoveries as interrogatives, Lyra glanced up from her instruments, momentarily startled as though she'd forgotten she wasn't alone with her data. Her eyes, a striking violet that occasionally emanated faint mana energy when she grew excited, widened with childlike enthusiasm that contrasted sharply with her professional demeanor. Both. Neither. The mathematical principles maintaining your transformation operate on dimensional frameworks that shouldn't be compatible with conventional biology, yet the integration demonstrates homeostatic equilibrium that defies theoretical limitations. She gestured emphatically, sending holographic data swirling around her like constellations orbiting an invisible star. It's like watching quantum possibility become probable through sheer mathematical insistence. Ben nodded, finding her genuine wonder refreshing after hours of clinical analysis from other plumber scientists who approached High's condition with wary professionalism rather than intellectual curiosity. The dragon consciousness stirred with approval. Lyra's perspective aligned with its own appreciation for fundamental patterns underlying reality's apparent chaos. The Omnitrix has always specialized in making the impossible probable, Ben observed, glancing down at the transformed device that now resembled an ornate bracer more than a watch. Golden circuitry interwoven with emerald framework in patterns that suggested ancient glyphs rather than technological design. Though this particular upgrade seems to operate on principles even Azimuth didn't anticipate. Quote, across the laboratory, Magister Rook Blanco reviewed security protocols with plumber officers while maintaining tactful distance from where Kata Shenron stood rigid and watchful. Her time patrol uniform marking her as distinctly outside standard operational hierarchy. The subtle territorial tension between agencies remained palpable despite professional courtesy. Speaking of principles, Lyra continued, recalibrating a scanner that hummed with increasing intensity as it passed over the Omnitrix. The energy signatures demonstrate remarkable similarity tied to theoretical models of pre-universal formation conditions. It's as though your device has somehow accessed primordial forces that existed before conventional physics established standardized interactions. Ben felt the dragon consciousness respond to her assessment with impressed recognition. The scientist had intuited fundamental truth without direct access to the knowledge it contained. That aligns with what I'm sensing, he confirmed, still adjusting to the dual awareness that allowed him to perceive aspects of reality beyond conventional human senses. The dragon essence seems connected to forces that predate universal differentiation. Lyra's expression brightened with intellectual delight. Exactly, which suggests potential connection to anodide evolutionary theory regarding pre-material energy constructs. Though the mathematical complexity far exceeds anything in recorded mana manipulation archives. She paused, noticing Ben's raised eyebrow, and added with charming self-awareness. I'm doing the thing again where excitement overrides communication efficiency, aren't I? Just a little, Ben acknowledged with a smile that revealed teeth slightly sharper than human standard. But your enthusiasm is refreshing compared to the potential catastrophic threat perspective I've been getting from everyone else. Lyra's expression softened as she set aside her scanner, approaching the examination platform with more direct attention to Ben rather than the data he generated. That's because most of them are focusing on what could go wrong rather than understanding what's actually happening, she said, her voice shifting to a gentler register. Scientific breakthrough always carries risk, but fear makes for poor analysis. This philosophical perspective resonated with Ben's own experience. Years of wielding universe-altering power had taught him that understanding preceded mastery, while fear invariably clouded judgment at critical moments. The dragon consciousness supplied wordless agreement. Ancient wisdom recognizing kindred perception despite vastly different origins. Dr. Nexus, Rook interrupted, approaching with datapad displaying security protocols. Magister Tennyson has requested preliminary assessment results for strategic planning purposes. Do you have sufficient data to provide initial briefing? Lyra straightened, professional demeanor. Reasserting itself as she gathered scattered holographic displays into organized sequence with graceful hand gestures. Preliminary data supports partial integration hypothesis with stability project. Tions extending into acceptable operational parameters, though comprehensive multiversal implications require expanded analysis framework beyond current monitoring capabilities. Rook nodded, accusto, med to translating Lyra's technical shorthand. Meaning Ben's condition appears stable for now, but longer-term effects remain unknown. With notable qualification that stable represents dynamic equilibrium rather than static condition. Lyra clarified, violet eyes briefly glowing as she emphasized this distinction. The transformation appears to be evolving toward sustainable integration rather than temporary manifestation. From her position near the laboratory entrance, Kata finally broke her observational silence. Evolution toward full dragon manifestation contradicts containment objectives, she stated flatly. Her formal diction carrying unsubtle warning. Time Patrol protocols mandate intervention before tertiary expression completes. Ben recognized the bureaucratic threat beneath her technical terminology. Intervention likely involved forcible extraction attempts regardless of potential consequences to him personally. The dragon consciousness responded with protective vigilance. Golden energy briefly manifesting around his transformed hands before he consciously suppressed the reaction. Your protocols were designed for conventional biological entities, Ben pointed out. Maintaining diplomatic tone despite growing frustration with Time Patrol rigidity. The Omnitrix provides integration framework beyond anything your agency has previously encountered. Lyra's scientific objectivity temporarily yielded to protective instinct as she positioned herself between Ben and Kata, her mixed heritage evident in the subtle mana energy that shimmered around her slender form. Agent Shenron, quantum resonance patterns indicate symbiotic rather than parasitic integration. Forced extraction would likely trigger catastrophic energy dispersion affecting multiple dimensional planes. The technical assessment carried implied warning that even Time Patrol Authority couldn't simply override multiversal physics with bureaucratic mandate. Kata's expression tightened. Professional mask briefly revealing personal conflict beneath institutional loyalty. Something in her rigid posture suggested reluctant recognition of validity in Lyra's analysis. The Supreme Kai-D vision requires comprehensive evaluation before modifying standard protocols, Kata responded after measured consideration. Until official determination is reached, observation continues under provisional cooperation agreement. The diplomatic standoff dissolved as Magister Tennyson, Max, Ben's grandfather, entered the laboratory with the practiced stride of someone who had navigated interstellar incidents and family dinners with equal composure for decades. His weathered features carried the gravitas of experience without sacrificing the fundamental warmth that defined his leadership approach. I see we're maintaining our traditional interagency cooperation, Max observed with dry humor that lightened the atmosphere immediately. Reminds me of the Koros coalition negotiations, though with fewer plasma discharges so far. Ben felt the tension in his shoulders ease at his grandfather's arrival. Despite achieving independent hero status years ago, something about Max's presence still provided anchoring perspective during extraordinary circumstances. The dragon consciousness recognized this familial connection with curious interest, the concept of lineage holding significance beyond its cosmic scale awareness. Grandpa, Ben acknowledged with genuine warmth. How bad is the political fallout from downtown? Max's expression balanced honesty with reassurance, a communication SK. Ill-refined through decades of mentorship. Nothing we haven't handled before. Property damage contained to non-residential zones, civilian injuries limited to minor cases. The official story involves experimental energy systems from legitimate research facilities, which technically isn't untrue. And the unofficial reaction, Ben pressed, knowing Max would provide unvarnished assessment rather than comfort. Plumber High Command has questions that I can't fully answer yet. Galactic Council representatives are requesting information sharing we're currently deferring. And several interdemands. INL monitoring agencies beyond our usual contacts have suddenly developed intense interest in Earth's temporal stability. Max's gaze shifted meaningfully toward Kata, some more transparently than others. Kata met his assessment without flinching. Time Patrol operates with appropriate authorization across designated dimensional coordinates. So you've mentioned, Max replied with the pat-iance of someone who had negotiated with literally thousands of different governmental structures. Though the exact nature of that authorization remains conveniently abstract whenever specifics are requested. Before institutional posturing could resume, Lyra interjected with remarkable timing, activating a central holographic display that expanded to dominate the laboratory's open space. P.S. visual representation might provide contextual framework for our discussion. The hologram materialized as an intricate three-dimensional model of interconnected universes, each represented as distinct spherical structures with unique energy signatures and internal complexity. Connecting these spheres were filaments of varying thickness and luminosity, creating a cosmic web of relationships. T shifted subtly as calculations updated in real time. This is incredible, Ben observed, the dragon consciousness providing enhanced perception of patterns human senses typically overlooked. You've mapped the multiverse structure. Lyra's professional confidence blossomed under his appreciation, violet eyes brightening with intellectual passion. A simplified representation based on theoretical framework and observational data from dimensional incursion events. What's fascinating is how your transformation has provided confirmation for several theoretical relationships we previously couldn't verify. She gestured toward two particularly prominent spheres within the model, one glowing with familiar emerald energy while the other pulsed with golden radiance. Our primary universal cluster, she indicated the green sphere, and what appears to be the dimensional origin point of dragon essence signatures. Her slender fingers traced the connection between them. These universes have natural intersection points based on fundamental vibrational frequencies, yet energy exchange is clearly occurring. Kata approached the hologram with reluctant interest, professional curiosity temporarily overriding institutional detachment. That's Z-dimensional cluster 7, she identified, pointing to the golden sphere. Primary jurisdiction under Supreme Kai oversight with Time Patrol Enforcement Authority. You call it Z-dimensional cluster 7, Lyra corrected with scientific precision rather than contradiction. Our designation system references it as Cosmos 816 Alpha. Terminology differences aside, the significant observation is this: she magnified the connection point between universes, revealing complex energy patterns flowing bidirectionally through what appeared to be artificially stabilized conduits. These aren't natural dimensional boundaries, Ben realized, the dragon consciousness providing intuitive understanding of what he observed. Someone engineered these connection points. Max studied the display with experienced assessment. Deliberate multiverse manipulation suggests coordination beyond random phenomenon. The question becomes whether your Omnitrix transformation was the objective or merely an unintended consequence. The implications settled across the laboratory with sobering weight. Ben had encountered countless threats throughout his hero career. But purposeful multiverse engineering represented strategic complexity beyond typical adversaries. The dragon consciousness stirred with ancient recognition, patterns similar to conflicts it had witnessed across cosmic cycles. The transformation timing wasn't coincidental, Ben concluded, pieces connecting through both human strategic thinking and draconic awareness. The Omnitrix has been absorbing trace energies for months, but full integration triggered precisely when the dimensional boundary weakened enough for direct contact. Lyra nodded, adjusting the holographic display to highlight temporal markers across recent months. Energy absorption patterns show exponential increase correlating with your interdimensional missions. Each universe hop created microscopy. See fracture points in dimensional barriers that accumulated until critical threshold. Meaning someone anticipated my movement patterns and gradually prepared the Omnitrix for dragon essence integration, Ben summarized. Tactical implications crystallizing with disturbing clarity. They engineered a long-term approach rather than direct confrontation, which suggests intimate knowledge of both the Omnitrix functionality and your typical response patterns, Rook added, professional concern evident beneath his composed exterior. A concerning level of surveillance capability. Max's expressee, hardened with protective instinct that transcended professional assessment, or inside information from someone familiar with both. The accusation hung unspoken but obvious: time patrols conveni. NT arrival precisely as transformation occurred suggested prior knowledge rather than reactive response. All eyes turned toward Keita, whose composed exterior revealed nothing beyond professional alertness. Time Patrol monitors dimensional boundary integrity across designated sectors, she stated evenly, neither confirming nor denying the implicit accusation. Dragon Essence manifestation triggered standard response protocols. With remarkably precise timing, Max noted, decades of experience detecting half-truths evident in his measured tone. Almost as though you were waiting for it. Before tension could escalate further. The laboratory's emergency systems activated without warning, proximity alerts, containment fields, and security protocols engaging simultaneously as sensors detect. TED anomalous energy signatures manifesting within the supposedly secure facility. Dimensional incursion detected in residential sector, announced the automated system, holographic warning symbols replacing the multiverse model. Unknown energy signature. Containment protocols engaging. Ben was moving before conscious thought completed, years of crisis response overriding all other considerations. The dragon consciousness surged forward with matching protective instinct, golden energy manifesting around his transformed form as he headed toward the laboratory exit with Rook matching his pace automatically. Residential sector. That's where off-duty personnel quarters are located, Rook noted, prototool already configuring to combat parameters. Current occupancy 37 plumbers from 17 species designations. Priority is evacuation and containment, Ben directed, command experience evident in his concise assessment. Whatever's coming through might be targeting the Dragon Omnitrix specifically. Lyra gathered essential equipment with practiced efficiency, violet energy shimmering around her hands as Anodite Heritage responded to potential threat. Energy Signature. Re-analysis suggests temporal displacement characteristics similar to the proxy entity from downtown. Another Chronos agent, Keita confirmed, chronometer already active as she joined them without hesitation. Institutional rivalries temporarily set aside in face of immediate danger. Tactical cooperation recommended against chronometric entities. Max activated facility-wide communication. All personnel, this is Magister Tennyson. Implement evacuation protocol Theta 9 for residential sector. Containment teams to convergence point, defensive formation only. Do not engage unknown entity without authorization. The group moved through Plumber headquarters with coordinated efficiency, emergency bulkheads sealing behind them as they navigated toward the incursion point. Ben felt the doctor, Argon consciousness expanding his awareness beyond conventional senses, detecting energy disruptions, temporal fluctuations, and dimensional stress points throughout the facility's structure. Something's different about this incursion, he noted as they approached the residential sector, golden eyes perceiving patterns invisible to others. The dimensional boundary isn't being forced open from outside, it's being weakened from within. Keita checked her chronometer readings with growing concern. Internal dimensional manipulation suggests entity presence predating detection. Possibly dormant until activated. The implications crystallized with disturbing clarity as they reached the residential sector's main corridor, emergency lighting casting angular shadows across evacuating personnel. Plumber agents maintained disciplined withdrawal while containment specialists established perimeter defenses around a central apartment unit where swirling energy patterns distorted local space-time. That's Cooper's quarters, Rook identified, referring to Cooper Daniels, the technopathic plumber whose mechanical genius had provided crucial support during countless missions. Ben's enhanced S's detected a single life signature within the distortion field, Cooper's distinct energy pattern, but altered with overlay frequencies that suggested outside influence. The Dragon Consciousness Pravi, dead deeper insight, Cooper's unique technopathic abilities created natural vulnerability to certain types of dimensional manipulation. He's being used as access point, Ben realized, tactical assessment forming instantly. His technopathic connection to surrounding systems provides ideal conduit for external entity infiltration. Lyra scanned the distortion field, violet eyes glowing as her anode. ITE heritage allowed direct energy perception. Quantum entanglement signatures indicate forced synchronization between Cooper's neural patterns and external consciousness. The dimensional boundary is NT being breached, it's being bypassed through consciousness transfer. Possession, Max translated grimly, decades of experience providing immediate strategic context. Someone's using Cooper as vessel to avoid direct dimensional crossing. Ben accessed memories of previous encounters with possession phenomena, combining human experience with dragon consciousness insight to formulate approach. We need to separate the invading consciousness without harming Cooper. Direct confrontation risks collateral damage to his mind. Kata's expression darkened with recognition. Chronometric possession follows established patterns. The host consciousness remains intact but suppressed while the invading entity maintains control through temporal desynchronization. Meaning Cooper experiences Tim.E at different rate than the possessing entity, Lyra clarified, scientific understanding translating to practical application. If we could resynchronize his temporal perception, we could give him opportunity to reassert control. Ben finished, their scientific minds connecting through parallel analysis. The momentary synchronized understanding between them didn't go unnoticed by either. Lash of connection beyond professional collaboration that registered before crisis focus resumed. The door to Cooper's quarters suddenly disintegrated, not through explosive force but molecular deconstruction that reduced solid matter to component particles in microseconds. Through this perfect opening stepped Cooper's form, though his movement patterns immediately registered as fundamentally wrong, too precise, too measured. Each motion calculated with mathematical efficiency that human physiology typically couldn't achieve. Temporal coordinates confirmed, Cooper's voice announced, though he intonation and harmonic patterns belong to something else entirely. Primary vessel secured, dragon essence detected within operational parameters. Cooper's eyes had transformed completely, pupil, iris and sclera replaced by swirling chronometric equations that constantly recalculated in response to surrounding temporal conditions. His hands moved with unsettling precision, manipulating invisible mathematics that affected local reality through equation-based alterations. Cooper Daniels, Max addressed the possessed technopathic with calm authority designed to reach the suppressed consciousness. This is Magister Tennyson. We know you're being controlled. Fight the influence while we work to help you. The entity controlling Cooper tilted his head with mechanical precision, express ion suggesting clinical curiosity rather than emotional response. The designation, Cooper Daniels, references the biological vessel only. This operational unit serves as extension of Lord Chronos across designated temporal coordinates. Ben stepped forward, careful to project non-threatening posture while positioning for potential intervention. We've encountered Chronos proxies before. What makes this approach different? Why use a human host rather than direct manifestation? The calculated question served dual purpose, gathering tactical information while establishing dialogue that might allow Cooper's consciousness opportunity to resurface. The dragon consciousness approved of this balanced approach, protective instinct tempered by strategic restraint. Direct manifestation creates dimensional disruption that attracts opposing forces, the entity explained with emotionless precision. Biological vessel utilization permits covert assessment without triggering defensive protocols. Cooper's eyes fixed on Ben's transformed appearance. Dragon integration proceeds according to probability calculations. Adaptation rate exceeds standard parameters. Ben maintained the conversation. Al connection while subtle hand signals coordinated team positioning around the possessed technopathic. If you're here for assessment rather than confrontation, perhaps we could discuss the integration process directly. Your previous proxy attempted forced extraction that proved counterproductive. The entity's expression shifted to what might have been approval. Logical proposal aligned with assessment objectives. Chronometric analysis requires direct observation of integration stability without interference variables. As conversation continued, Lyra gradually positioned specialized P meant that hummed with barely audible frequencies, temporal stabilization technology she had subtly activated while attention remained focused on dialogue. Kata recognized the approach immediately, our chronometer synchronizing with plumber technology to establish compatible resonance field. The integration demonstrates interesting adaptation patterns, Ben continued, golden eyes maintaining ECT contact with the entity's chronometric gaze. The Omnitrix provides structural framework that mediates between dragon essence and biological host, creating stable symbiosis rather than dominance hierarchy. The entity controlling Cooper moved closer, analytical interest evident in its precise movements. Structural framework hypothesis aligns with observed stability parameters. Examination of Interface methodology required for comprehensive assessment. As the entity reached toward the Omnitrix with Cooper's hand, Ben activated the prepared trap, a simple gesture that completed the temper. Al resonance circuit Lyra and Kata had established. The laboratory's ambient sound suddenly compressed into absolute silence as localized time field activated around Cooper's form, creating microscope. ND differential between the possessing entity's temporal perception and Cooper's native consciousness. Within this infinitesimal gap, Cooper's technopathic abilities activated instinctively, his nature. Al connection to surrounding technology providing anchor point for his suppressed consciousness to reassert control. The struggle manifested physically as his body locked into rigid posture, muscles tensed with conflicting neural commands as two consciousnesses fought for dominance within single biological system. Cooper, Lyra called out, violet energy flowing from her hands to reinforce the temporal field. Focus on your connection to local technology. Use the synchronization differential to establish dominant pattern. The possessed technopathic shuddered violently, chronometric equation. S in his eyes fluctuating between ordered sequence and chaotic disruption as Cooper's consciousness fought against controlling entity. The battle transcended physical struggle, two distinct awareness turns competing for integration with single neural structure. Ben sensed the critical moment approaching, Cooper gaining momentary advantage but lacking sufficient strength to completely expel the invading consciousness. Without intervention, stalemate would eventually favor the more powerful entity as Cooper's resistance weakened through exhaustion. The dragon consciousness offered solution WITH crystalline clarity. Earth Dragon's fundamental nature centered on stability and foundation, properties that could reinforce Cooper's native consciousness against external influence. Ben reached toward the struggling technopathic, golden energy flowing from his transformed hand as he channeled dragon essence through precisely controlled application. Cooper, I'm providing anchoring energy, Ben explained, maintaining calm directive tone despite the power flowing through him. Focus on your core identity, memories, connections, experiences that define you. I'll stabilize the pattern while you reassert control. The golden energy surrounded Cooper's form, manifesting as intricate geometric patterns that reinforced his natural neural pathways while systematically isolating and containing the invading consciousness. The combination of Lyra's temporal field, Kata's chronometric stabilization, and Ben's draconic reinforcement created perfect conditions for Cooper's consciousness to reclaim dominance. With sudden clarity, Cooper's eyes returned to normal, chronometric equations replaced by his natural blue irises, though residual energy patterns remained visible beneath the surface. He gasped as though surfacing from underwater, legs buckling as Ben caught him before he could collapse completely. I've got you, Ben assured him, supporting Cooper's weight while maintaining stabilizing energy field. The entity's contained but not expelled. We need to complete separation before it adapts to countermeasures. Cooper nodded weakly, technopathic abilities already interfacing with surrounding systems to reinforce his mental defenses. It's still here, in my mind but isolated. I can feel it analyzing escape vectors through temporal variables. Kata approached with professional urgency. Chronometer configured to specialized parameters. Chronometric entities can be extracted through properly calibrated temporal fields, but the process requires precise mathematical sequencing to prevent neural damage. I can provide the sequencing, Cooper offered, technopathic abilities allowing direct interface with Kata's equipment. My consciousness recorded its operational patterns during possession. With proper synchronization, we can force complete ejection. Ben maintained stabilizing field while Kata and Cooper established direct interface between Time Patrol Technolog. Y and technopathic abilities, an unprecedented cooperation that bypassed conventional compatibility limitations through real-time adaptation. Lyra monitored neural patterns with specialized equipment, providing continuous feedback to ensure Cooper's consciousness remained protected during the delicate procedure. Extraction sequence calculated, Cooper announced, pale but determined as his technop. Athic abilities translated complex chronometric mathematics into executable protocol. Implementing on my mark, now. The combined technologies activated simultaneously, creating visible distortion. Field around Cooper's form as chronometric equations manifested physically, temporal mathematics separating entangled consciousness patterns with surgical precision. The possessing entity resisted extraction. Mathematical countermeasures attempting to maintain neural connection through alternative dimensional frameworks. Ben sensed the critical moment approaching, extraction nearly complete but entity's desperation mounting as separation progressed. The dragon consciousness provided warning of imminent counterattack, energy patterns indicating last resort offensive response. Brace for energy discharge, Ben warned. Golden energy forming protective barrier around the extraction team. It's preparing desperation countermeasure. The warning came just as extraction reached completion point. The entity's consciousness fully separated from Cooper's neural structure but momentarily suspended within extraction field before dimensional reversion could initiate. In this vulnerable microsecond, the entity converted its entire consciousness into offensive equation, mathematical principles that would destroy surrounding molecular structures if released uncontrolled. Ben reacted instinctively, dragon consciousness guiding his response with perfect precision. Golden energy expanded outward, forming containment sphere around the suspended entity that absorbed and redirected its desperate attack. The mathematical destruction equations encountered dragon essence stability principles, creating momentary standoff before Ben's will-imposed dominant pattern. Not in my headquarters, Ben stated with quiet authority. Compressed power evident in his measured tone as he systematically neutralized the entity's offensive equations through superior mathematical principles. The entity's form destabilized completely, chronometric patterns dissolving into base components that dissipated harmlessly within Ben's containment field. The golden energy receded gradually, Ben maintaining curfew control until absolutely certain no residual threat remained. Cooper collapsed into waiting medical team's care, exhaustion overtaking him as the ordeal concluded. It was scanning, he managed Kaylee before being transported to medical facilities. Not attacking. Gathering data for something called convergence calculation. As emergency response teams secured the area and established monitoring protocols to prevent further incursions, Ben felt the dragon consciousness processing what had occurred, not with alarm but with thoughtful analysis that suggested deeper implications than immediate threat. That wasn't standard possession, Ben observed once the immediate crisis stabilized. The entity wasn't trying to maintain permanent control, it was using Cooper's consciousness as observation platform to gather specific data. Lyra nodded, reviewing readings from multiple instruments with rapid assessment. The neural interface patterns suggest information gathering rather than conquest objective. It was specifically analyzing how the Omnitrix integrates dragon essence at consciousness level. Reconnaissance, Max translated with decades of tactical experience. Whatever Kronos is planning, he needed detailed understanding of your specific integration process first. Kata's professional detachment momentarily yielded to genuine concern. If Lord Kronos seeks comprehensive integration analysis, standard containment approach is already compromised. This suggests strategic adaptation beyond typical chronometric methodology. The implications settled across the grow up with sobering weight, not merely facing powerful adversary, but one demonstrating methodical intelligence gathering before committing to direct confrontation. Strategic patience suggested confidence, and planning that elevated threat assessment significantly. We need to understand what we're dealing with, Ben decided, practical approach replacing reactive response. Starting with exactly what this dragon essence is and why its reclamation matters enough to justify multiversal manipulation. Lyra gestured toward laboratory return, scientific curiosity overwhelming immediate concern. Her's technopathic interface may have inadvertently transferred data in both directions. If we analyze residual chronometric patterns, we might extract intelligence about Kronos' objectives. As E group returned to primary laboratory facilities, Ben felt subtle shift in the dragon consciousness, not anxiety but heightened alertness, as though recent events had confirmed suspicions about larger patterns unfolding across multiple dimensions. The awareness provided flashes of conceptual understanding too vast for immediate translation into human thought frameworks. Within the laboratory's secure environment, Lyra immediately configured holographic systems to display extracted data from Cooper's experience, complex patterns materializing as visual representations of chronometric mathematics that had composed the possessing entity. Fascinating, she murmured, violet eyes tracking equations with remarkable comprehension. These aren't merely temporal calculations, they're dimensional apping algorithms designed to identify convergence points across multiple universal clusters. Keita studied the patterns with professional recognition. Standard time patrol cartography principles, but implemented with precision beyond authorized parameters. The mathematical complexity suggests direct time dragon aspect influence. Time dragon, Max inquired, prioritizing practical understanding over theoretical implications. I assume that's significant beyond the obvious temporal connection. Keita hesitated briefly, institutional secrecy warring with practical necessity before tactical reality won out. The dragon essence exists in 7 distinct aspects, each connected to fundamental universal forces: earth, fire, water, wind, shadow, light, and time. Each aspect maintains C-dimensional properties within universal structure. Ben felt the dragon consciousness confirm this explanation while supplying deeper context, the 7 aspects representing not merely elemental CES but conceptual frameworks through which reality itself maintained coherence across dimensional boundaries. And these aspects normally exist independently? Ben asked, processing information through both human understanding and draconic awareness, typically distributed across designated guardian entities under Supreme Kai supervision, Keita confirmed, professional detachment slipping to reveal genuine concern. Consolidated dragon essence represents unprecedented power concentration that threatens dimensional stability protocols. Lyra continued analyzing the chronometric equations, scientific objectivity providing clarity beyond institutional perspective. These calculations reference 7 distinct energy signatures converging through singular nexus point. She glanced toward Ben with dawning comprehension. The Omnitrix isn't merely connecting to Earth dragon aspect, it's establishing interface potential with all 7 simultaneously. The revelation landed with appropriate gravity, not merely wielding single aspect of primordial power, but potentially accessing complete spectrum of fundamental forces that shaped multiversal reality. Ben felt the dragon consciousness neither confirming nor denying this assessment, though subtle awareness shifts suggested accuracy beyond Keita's institutional understanding. That explains the aggressive response from both Time Patrol and Chronos, Ben reasoned. Tactical implications crystallizing with disturbing clarity. This isn't about single-aspect manipulation, it's about potential consolidation of power normally distributed across multiple dimensions. Max's expression reflected appropriate concern without yielding to reaction. Which raises crucial question, was this accidental evolutionary path for the Omnitrix, or deliberate engineering by outside force? The laboratory fell momentarily silent as implications settled across different perspectives: scientific, tactical, institutional, and personal considerations intersecting without clear resolution. Ben felt the dragon consciousness processing possibilities with ancient patience that transcended immediate circumstance, perceiving patterns across timescales human awareness typically couldn't encompass. The Omnitrix has always had evolutionary potential beyond original design parameters, Ben noted, years of experience with the device informing his assessment. Azimuth built adaptation frameworks into its core functionality, allowing it to evolve in response to user requirements and environmental conditions. Lyra nodded, scientific appreciation evident in her animated gestures. Adaptive semi-sentient technology with self-modification protocols that transcend designer limitations, precisely what makes the device unique across known universal technology indexes. Which makes it perfect vector for dragon essence integration, Ben concluded, pieces connecting through both human strategic thinking and draconic awareness. Not theft or invasion, but evolutionary adaptation to changing multiversal conditions. Keita's expression suggested institutional skepticism battling against observational evidence. Theoretical possibility doesn't share jurisdictional protocols regarding dragon essence distribution. Perhaps protocols require reassessment when reality presents exceptions, Lyra suggested with scientific pragmatism that cut through bureaucratic rigidity. Observation clearly demonstrates stable integration beyond prediction models, suggesting viable evolutionary path rather than containment threat. Before jurisdictional debate could resume, Ben raised his hand in subtle request for attention, not commanding silence but indicating perspective shift with quiet authority that reflected years of leadership experience. The immediate priority isn't determining whether this should have happened, he stated with characteristic focus on practical solutions rather than theoretical debate. It's understanding what we're ing with and how to manage it responsibly. Starting with learning exactly what these dragon aspects are capable of and how the Omnitrix integration differs from standard manifestations. The Practica L framework refocused discussion toward constructive analysis rather than institutional positioning, a leadership approach Ben had refined through years of crisis management across multiple worlds. The Dragon consciousness approved of this balanced perspective, ancient wisdom recognizing value in addressing reality as it existed rather than as protocols dictated it should be. An excellent suggestion, Max agreed. Years of mentorship evident in his supportive reinforcement. Dr. Nexus, perhaps you could establish testing protocols that satisfy both scientific requirements and safety parameters. Lyra's expression brightened with intellectual challenge, violet eyes briefly glowing as enthusiasm manifested through her anodite heritage. Controlled manifestation assessment under graduated PA. Parameter expansion would provide optimal data collection while maintaining containment contingencies. Observation protocols acceptable under provisional cooperation framework, CADA acknowledged, p. Practical reality trumping institutional rigidity. Time patrol expertise regarding aspect manifestation characteristics may provide useful baseline for comparison analysis. With tentative consensus established, the laboratory transition to experimental preparation, specialized equipment configured for energy containment, monitoring systems calibrated to multispectral analysis parameters, emerge. NCY protocols established with appropriate redundancy. Throughout these preparations, Ben noticed subtle but significant shift in team dynamics, Lyra and Kata gradually establishing professional communication rhythm despite their different perspectives and methodologies. Initial testing should focus on conscious control parameters under varying stress conditions, Lyra suggested, configuring pre-Mary monitoring station with efficient precision. Starting with baseline manifestation stability before introducing controlled disruption variables. Kata nodded with professional appreciation for the methodical approach. Standard time patrol assessment sequence applies similar progressive challenge framework. Though typical subjects demonstrate significantly lower control thresholds than currently observed. Ben positioned himself within the designated testing area, a reinforced chamber originally designed for containing extraterrestrial entities of unknown capability, its walls layered WITH energy dampening technology and dimensional stabilization fields. The Dragon consciousness recognized the containment technologies with analytical interest rather than threat assessment, appreciating the engineering principles behind their construction. Ready when you are, Ben confirmed, centered both physically and mentally as he prepared for deliberate transformation exploration rather than reactive manifestation. Lyra initiated baseline scans, holographic displays materializing around her as instrumentation gathered preliminary data. Beginning with fundamental integration assessment. Please maintain normal respiratory and circulatory parameters while I establish physiological baseline. Ben focused on the partial draconic features he had maintained since the rooftop confrontation, golden eyes with vertical pupils. Subtle scale patterns beneath skin, enhanced musculature with slightly altered proportions. These changes represented baseline integration state, Dragon essence PR. Essent but largely dormant within human physiological framework. Baseline readings established, Lyra confirmed after several minutes of comprehensive scanning. Remarkable homeostatic equilibrium despite significant genetic modification. Your cellular structure has adapted to Dragon essence presence through what appears to be recursive quantum entanglement at molecular level. Meaning, Ben prompted, appreciating her scientific precision but requiring practical translation. Your human DNA and Dragon essence aren't merely coexisting, they're communicating through quantum mechanisms that allow simultaneous expression of both genetic frameworks without competition. Lyra explained, genuine wonder evident beneath professional assessment. It's like watching two completely different symphonic compositions harmonize perfectly despite following different musical theories entirely. The poetic analogy resonated with Ben's experience, the Dragon consciousness and human awareness operating as complementary rather than competing aspects of unified whole. Unlike typical Omnitrix transformations where alien consciousness temporarily supplanted human identity, the Dragon integration established shed partnership that preserved essential qualities of both. Now for controlled manifestation assessment, Lyra continued, adjusting monitoring parameters with practiced efficiency. Please initiate Partial transformation focusing specifically on Earth Dragon aspect expression without full conversion. Ben nodded, closing his eyes briefly as he focused inward, not activating the Omnitrix through conventional interface but directly communicating with the dragon consciousness through established connection. The request translated conceptually rather than verbally, intention shaped into shared understanding that transcended linguistic limitations. Golden energy manifested around Ben's form as transformation initiated, not the complete reconfiguration experienced during rooftop confrontation but controlled. Selective expression of specific draconic attributes. Scale patterns emerged more prominently across exposed skin, subtle bone structure shifts modified facial features toward dracony. See appearance while maintaining recognizable human framework, muscles densified with enhanced strength potential without dramatically altering proportions. Remarkable control precision, Kata observed. Ed with professional assessment that couldn't entirely conceal impressed recognition. Typical manifestation subjects demonstrate binary transformation states rather than graduated expression capability. Lyra's monitoring equipment hummed with increasing intensity as data accumulated across multiple parameters. The Omnitrix interface is mediating energy distribution with mathematical precision. Beyond conventional transformation metrics, it's establishing quantum harmonics that allow simultaneous expression of both genetic frameworks through overlapping probability fields. Ben maintained the partial transformation state, consciously exploring sensory enhancements and physical modifications with scientific curiosity rather than combat assessment. The dragon consciousness provided context. T for each change. Scales offering environmental protection beyond human dermal limitations, altered vision perceiving electromagnetic spectrum with expanded range, muscle density increasing force apple. Ication potential through modified cellular structure. How's it feel? Max asked from observation position, practical concern balancing scientific assessment. Different from standard transformations, Ben replied. Voice carrying subtle harmonic resonance without full draconic modulation. Typically alien forms replace human consciousness with template awareness. This feels more like collaborative expansion. I'm still entirely myself, just with additional perspective layers. Lyra continued monitoring with growing excitement as data patterns emerged across holographic displays. The neural integration is particularly fascinating. Dragon consciousness isn't supplanting original identity but establishing complementary awareness framework that enhances cognitive processing without compromise. Precisely why unregulated integration presents jurisdictional concerns, Kata noted, though her professional skepticism seemed increasingly performative rather than genuine. Expanded cognitive capability without corresponding oversight protocols creates potential ethical complications. Ben raised an eyebrow at this institutional perspective. As opposed to standard Omnitrix functions T already grant access to intelligence levels and perception frameworks beyond typical human limitations. The containment approach seems selectively applied to dragon essence specifically. The observation highlighted institutional inconsistency with diplomatic precision, acknowledging legitimate concern while questioning selective application to specific phenomenon. Kata's expression suggested reluctant recognition of valid perspective despite institutional loyalty. Regulatory frameworks evolved specifically around dragon essence distribution due to historical precedent regarding dimensional stability implications. She explained with surprising candidness. Though I acknowledge application inconsistency regarding other transformation technologies of comparable potential. This CTED acknowledgement shifted conversational dynamics, moving from institutional posturing toward genuine exchange of perspectives. Ben recognized significant concession from Time Patrol Representative W. Ho could have maintained rigid protocol adherence rather than engaging with legitimate criticism. Perhaps we could establish new precedent based on observed results rather than historical assumptions, Ben suggested. Offering collaborative framework rather than confrontational challenge. Your expertise regarding dragon essence characteristics combined with our experience managing transformation technologies might develop more effective approach than either would achieve independently. Lyra's expression brightened at this diplomatic bridge building, violet eyes briefly meeting Ben's golden gaze with appreciation for balanced leadership approach that prioritized practical solutions over territorial disputes. The momentary connection carried warmth beyond professional collaboration, subtle E-recognition of compatible thought patterns despite different backgrounds and experiences. A most logical proposal, she affirmed, scientific objectivity providing neutral ground for institutional cooperation. Empirical assessment transcends jurisdictional boundaries when addressing unprecedented phenomena. Shall we proceed with graduated manifestation testing? With tentative cooperation framework established, experimental protocols advanced through progressive transformation states, Ben systematically exploring Earth-Dragon capabilities under controlled conditions while comprehensive monitoring provided detailed analysis. Each manifestation level revealed new aspects of integration potential while confirming remarkable stability parameters that contradicted Time Patrol's catastrophic predictions. Hours passed in focused experimentation, professional barriers gradually dissolving through shared scientific discovery and genuine problem-solving collaboration. Lyra's enthusiasm proved infectious as each test revealed new insights into Dragon essence properties and integration mechanics, her animated explanations occasionally veering into technical complexity that required gentle redirection toward practical application. The gravitational manipulation capabilities demonstrate particular promise, she noted as Ben demonstrated ability to alter localized gravity fields through precise application of Earth-Dragon aspect, though not merely affecting standard gravitational constants but apparently manipulating fundamental binding principles that maintain molecular cohesion. Ben nodded, golden energy flowing between his transformed hands as he shaped small-scale gravitational field that caused laboratory objects to orbit around central point with perfect mathematical precision. It feels less like imposing external force and more like adjusting natural parameters that already exist within material structure. Fundamental force manipulation rather than energy projection. Kata translated with growing scientific interest that gradually supplanted institutional detachment, consistent with theoretical models regarding Dragon aspect operational principles. The experimental session reached natural conclusion as energy readings indicated approaching fatigue threshold, not dangerous depletion but optimal point for rest and integration before continuing assessment. Ben allowed transformation to recede gradually, maintaining controlled deactivation rather than abrupt reversion. I think that's enough for one day, Max suggested with characteristic attention to practical limitations. The data we've gathered provides solid foundation for continued assessment after proper rest period. Lyra nodded reluctantly, scientific curiosity warring with practical consideration before responsibility prevailed. Agreed. Cellular adaptation indicators suggest optimal integration occurs during standard rest cycles. Further testing without adequate recovery period might introduce variable contamination. Quote, as experimental equipment powered down and monitoring systems entered standby configuration, Ben noticed Lyra organizing data with meticulous care that ended professional requirement. Genuine passion for discovery evident in her precise movements and occasional soft exclamations as particularly interesting correlations emerged during preliminary analysis. You really enjoy this, don't you? Ben observed with genuine appreciation for her intellectual enthusiasm. Not just the technical aspects but the discovery process itself. Lyra glanced up from her work, momentary surprise giving way to unguarded smile that transformed her features from professional competence to genuine warmth. Is it that obvious? There's something beautiful about watching reality reveal itself through properly framed questions. Like having conversation with the universe. The poetic perspective resonated deeply with Ben's experience, years of transformation granted him perspective across biological frameworks that few beings ever experienced. The Dragon consciousness stirred with particular appreciation for her articulation, ancient awareness recognizing kinder ed perspective despite vastly different origins. I understand completely, Ben replied with matching sincerity. Each transformation has always felt like glimpsing reality through entirely different perceptual framework. This integration just takes that experience to entirely new level. Their shared understanding created momentary connection that transcended professional collaboration, genuine resonance between minds that approached discovery with similar wonder despite different methodologies. The subtle shift didn't go unnoticed by Max, whose experienced observation caught the exchange quiet assessment rather than commentary. Dr. Nexus, perhaps you could provide summary assessment for official documentation before we adjourn. Max suggested with practiced timing that gently read, erected without disrupting emerging connection. particularly focusing on safety parameters for continued testing protocols. Lyra straightened with professional composure that didn't entirely mask the animated enthusiasm beneath. Of course, Magister Tennyson. Preliminary assessment indicates stable integration with controlled manifestation capabilities substantially exceeding prediction models. Arth Dragon aspect demonstrates consistent response to conscious direction without degradation indicators or dimensional disruption markers. Translation. Ben's handling it remarkably well and Firth. Testing appears safe under controlled conditions, Max simplified with good-natured pragmatism. With appropriate monitoring and graduated parameter expansion, yes, Lyra confirmed, adding with scientific precision. Though complete manifestation assessment will require specialized containment protocols beyond standard facility capabilities, which can be arranged through joint implementatio. N of Plummer technology and time patrol dimensional stabilization methodology, Kata suggested, surprising everyone with proactive cooperation proposal rather than regulatory objection. Combined app, Roach would provide optimal safety parameters while facilitating comprehensive assessment. The unexpected collaboration offer from Time Patrol representatives signaled significant shift from initial containment mandate toward genuine scientific partnership. Ben recognized the professional risk Kata accepted by prioritizing practical solution over institutional directive, a choice that suggested deeper integrity than first impressions had indicated. That would be extremely helpful, Ben acknowledged with diplomatic appreciation that respected her professional contribution without drawing attention to potential protocol deviation. Your expertise regarding Dragon Essence characteristics provides crucial context our analysis would otherwise lack. Kata nodded with professional composure. That didn't entirely conceal satisfaction at having expertise acknowledged rather than authority challenged. Integration precedent requires comprehensive documentation if future regulatory frameworks are to be properly calibrated. My direct observation report will influence Time Patrol policy development regarding similar manifestations. As the session concluded and team members prepared for well-earned rest period, Ben noticed Lyra lingering over final data organization with particular attention to certain transformation sequences. Her violet eyes occasionally glanced in his direction when she thought he wasn't looking. Scientific assessment gradually yielding to more personal curiosity. Something on your mind, Drive. Nexus. Ben inquired with gentle directness, years of leadership XP. Ryan's having taught him that unaddressed questions typically complicated collaborative dynamics. Lyra hesitated briefly, professional detachment warring with genuine curiosity before scientific integrity prevailed. I was wondering about your subjective experience during different manifestation stages. The data shows remarkable neural integration patterns, but instrumentation can't capture experiential quality of consciousness expansion. The question transcended mere technical inquiry, genuine interest in personal dimension beyond empirical measurement. Ben appreciated both the scientific validity and human connection inherent in her approach. It's difficult to describe precisely, he acknowledged, considering thoughtfully before continuing. Imagine suddenly perceiving an entire spectrum of reality that was always present but previously invisible. The dragon consciousness doesn't replace my awareness, it expands it into dimensions I didn't have framework to conceptualize before. Lyra nodded with genuine understanding rather than mere acknowledgement. Similar to how anodite perception experiences mana fields that most beings never consciously register despite constant interaction with them. Exactly, Ben confirmed, appreciating her intuitive grasp of concept that defied conventional explanation. Though dragon perception seems to operate at even more fundamental level, perceiving the mathematical principles that maintain reality's coherence rather than merely energies flowing through established frameworks. Their conversation continued with remarkable natural rhythm as they left the laboratory together. Theoretical discussion flowing into personal perspectives and back again without awkward transitions or forced connections. Ben found himself genuinely enjoying Lyra's company beyond professional collaboration, her brilliant mind approaching complex questions with combination of scientific rigor and childlike wonder that resonated with his own experience-tempered curiosity. As they reached residential section where temporary quarters had been arranged during the assessment period, Lyra paused with momentary hesitation before continuing conversation. They prepared comprehensive data analysis that might interest you, she offered with professional tone that didn't entirely mask personal invitation beneath. Preliminary correlation patterns between Dragon aspect manifestation and Omnitrix evolutionary adaptations suggest fascinating integration principles that transcend conventional transformation parameters. Ben recognized the gesture for what it represented: extension of intellectual connection into potential personal relationship, offered with sufficient professional framework to preserve dignity regardless of response. The thoughtful approach demonstrated emotional intelligence that matched her scientific brilliance. "I'd appreciate that perspective," Ben replied with genuine interest rather than mere courtesy. The integration experience feels fundamentally different from standard transformations in ways I'm still working to articulate properly. Your analytical framework might provide valuable context. Lyra's expression brightened with pleased surprise, violet eyes briefly glowing with mana energy that reflected genuine emotional response beneath professional composure. "Excellent. I look forward to continuing our discussion. The implications for transformation technology understanding extend well beyond immediate application concerns." As they parted ways with arrangement to continue conversation following rest period, Ben felt the dragon consciousness stirring with reflective assessment, ancient awareness considering emergent connections with perspective that transcended immediate circumstances. The non-verbal impression suggested approval of developing relationship patterns based on genuine intellectual and personal compatibility rather than superficial attraction. Entering temporary quarters assigned during assessment period, Ben finally allowed transformation to recede completely, draconic features fading as human appearance reasserted dominance, though golden eyes retained subtle luminescence that suggested permanent alteration rather than temporary manifestation. The Omnitrix remained in transformed state, emerald and gold configuration with 7 dragon icons encircling central dial, H aspect illuminated while others remained dormant. Ben approached the quarters, window overlooking Plumber headquarters central atrium, watching personnel continuing operations with disciplined efficiency despite extraordinary circumstances unfolding within their midst. The scene prompted reflection on how quickly apparent catastrophes transformed into manageable situations through methodical assessment and collaborative problem solving, a pattern he had witnessed repeatedly throughout hero career that spanned more than a decade. The dragon consciousness shared this contemplative moment, and awareness providing perspective that spanned civilizations and dimensional epochs. The non-verbal impression suggested recognition of recurring patterns across vastly different scales, individual growth mirroring species evolution mirroring universal development, all following similar principles despite apparent differences. Tomorrow would bring continued testing, expanded understanding, and likely new challenges as multiversal forces responded to unprecedented integration event. For now, Ben appreciated momentary stillness between crisis points, opportunity to process extraordinary changes through calm reflection rather than reactive response. As fatigue finally registered after intensive testing session, Ben settled into rest cycle with practiced discipline, mental techniques développées through years of managing transformation stresses allowing rapid transition to restorative state despite unusual circumstances. The dragon consciousness maintained vigilant awareness even as human consciousness entered sleep cycle, providing protection without disrupting necessary recovery. The last thought before consciousness faded carried dual perspective, human strategic assessment and Draconic pattern recognition converging on shared understanding that transcended their different origins. Whatever forces had engineered this convergence had only begun their true objective. The Dragon Omnitrix represented merely opening move in cosmic game whose full parameters remained hidden beneath surface events. Tomorrow would bring next phase in understanding exactly what game they were playing, and how to ensure their role extended beyond reactive piece to strategic player capable of influencing ultimate outcome. Chapter 2 End. The End. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.